has on everything that's been going on with the recent bombings. It's been a very scary thing for me to be checking in with my family members, making sure that everybody is safe, and just staying on top of all of that really stressful news. I've lost loved ones in the past, of course, just like anybody else, and when I was 8 years old, I lost my aunt to Wegener's granulomatosis, which is a disease that weakens the immune system. And that was in 1999, about 12 days before my birthday. As I've grown farther away from that point in time, I've come to understand my aunt from a different perspective. Growing up changes your perspective of the way you look at people, how you understand them, and how you interact with them. How many of you lost a loved one at a younger age? Great. Not great, of course, but I'm glad that you got it. Sorry, that was a poor choice of words. But rather, in addition to having lost that loved one, as you grew older, did you find that you now understood that loved one in a different perspective? That's something that when I came to learn something about my aunt, I really wanted to look into further. I had an opportunity in a creative writing class to write such a thing, and I found a lot of these new perspectives troubling for me. So I wrote this piece, which is entitled, What She Was. I have a lot of unanswered questions about my mother's sister. I do not know why Auntie Sandy's favorite movie was The Wizard of Oz, only that since her death, I have been unable to watch it. I do not know why, at the time of her death, she owned a lap keyboard that automatically played Wake Me Up Before You Go Go, only that she tricked my 7-year-old self into believing that she was playing it herself. I don't know why she was buried in a yellow dress, only that she would never have picked it herself. I don't know why she spoiled my brother and me as if she was our grandmother, only that every time I saw her, I could expect a pack of Devilment gum. And I don't know whether or not she was a lesbian. I only know that she was never married. My mom, my brother, and I once took a long drive to pick up Auntie Sandy's at a friend's house that was not hers. I was pretty much used to going with my mom to take my aunt places. I was sure that my aunt did not have a driver's license, but I didn't mind. It was just one more thing that we had in common. When I asked why the drive took so long, my mom only said, "We're picking up Auntie Sandy from her friend's house." "What's her friend's name?" I asked. "Lisa," Mom said. How Auntie Sandy got to Lisa's house, I don't know. I wondered if Auntie Sandy spent the night there, like I sometimes did on nights that were not school nights with my best friend. Auntie Sandy and I even had our own sleepovers once in a while. She always let me eat as much Lucky Charms as I wanted for breakfast. The house we pulled up to was more vertical than horizontal. Gray and yellow paint peeled away from the house as if leaning away from something inside, and the weeds and the grass in the minimal front yard slouched. At the end of the street and across the main road was a playground with rusting swing sets and smallish plastic slides that had seen better days. I wondered if my brother and I might get to play after we got Auntie Sandy from Lisa's house. Some people came out of the house while we waited in our purple minivan. Auntie Sandy was first, carrying a small duffel bag. Her white shirt hung from her thin and crooked body, and the wind ruffled her black hair. A woman in a black t-shirt followed her out. Her hair was left undisturbed by the wind. It was short and spiky and silver. The woman pushed her hands into her pockets. Mom got out of the van to help Auntie Sandy with her bag. Auntie Sandy approached the woman and they hugged. While I waited, I considered the length of the other woman's hair. I assumed she was Lisa. I could not remember seeing a woman with hair so short before, except Mom's cousin Karen, and she was kind of weird anyway. My consideration of Lisa and her hair did not last long. Mom and Auntie Sandy climbed into the minivan and we drove away. I watched Lisa wave at us through the rear window. A few months ago, my brother came up to me and, for no reason that I could discern, said, "Did you know Auntie Sandy was gay?" "What?" I said, "No, she wasn't. She just wasn't married." Something about the possibility that my aunt was a lesbian, a sexual being, plucked a string inside me which vibrated violently. I knew her as a child before I understood sexuality. Without the benefit of knowing her after her death, I see her now just as I did then, without the burden of sexual prejudice. I have no problems with homosexuality. Instances of close friends coming out have not changed my feelings towards them, nor my relationships with them. Yet I could not make sense of Ethan's abrupt claim or why he told me at all. My brother never seemed determined that I believe him. Dad! Ethan found my dad in the office and proceeded to attempt to produce evidence. Wasn't Auntie Sandy a lesbian? We don't know for sure, but we think so, he said. There were a million people who might include we. Did we mean Mom and Dad, or Dad and his family, or someone else entirely? See, Ethan said. He sounded satisfied as he folded his arms across his chest. I, meanwhile, stared at the floor and sunk down into the love seat just like the information sinking into my brain. Oblivious to what he had done, Ethan continued watching TV while his smug declaration confronted the asexual impression I still held of my aunt. I struggled to reconcile myself with the idea that she, like anybody I knew now, had sexual desires, had crushes, loved people. I told myself it did not matter if she had met a lesbian, if she was still the same person. For several months now, I have been stuck. With the recent trauma in Boston, my aunt is especially present in my thoughts, but she is nothing more than my aunt. She is the woman who adored the Wizard of Oz, who entertained her niece with deception, who wore ratty old t-shirts and sweatpants regularly, who spoiled me like a granddaughter, and who, like anyone else, loved. So I wrote this piece really trying to come to terms with the idea that my aunt was a sexual person, just like anybody else that I knew. And it was a very strange thing for me to really realize because, like I mentioned, she had passed away when I was only 8 years old. And when you're 8 years old, you're not necessarily thinking, oh yeah, my parents had sex. Like, that's not what's going through your head. So when I realized this about my aunt, it was troubling. And like I said, it wasn't because of who she loved, it was that she loved it all. It was a very strange concept to me. So I went into this piece still very confused, still very torn, not sure if I wanted to know the context of her relationships, not knowing what I wanted to know. And I came away from this piece after some revisions and talking to classmates about it, talking to friends about it, realizing that it didn't matter. So I hope that if any of you have similar issues with loved ones that you've lost and that you now have to reconcile new information about them, that you might try writing about it and see if it helps you understand if it really matters, and if it does, maybe you'll be able to come to terms with it at the same time. Thank you.
Yay! Because I can't clap. So yeah.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Abby. Our third and final presenter for this session is Jordan West with her project.